Together we rise, a year in solidarity and solutions. Hello, everyone. I'm Mona, your host to Solutions, and welcome to the 1 year anniversary of Solutions Live. I'm honored to share a little of my journey with you today, a journey that has spanned decades and taken many forms, but always with one goal in mind: supporting and connecting with fellow polio survivors. I'm so happy to have you here with me and all the incredible guests who've joined us along the way. When we started this series a year ago, I had no idea how much we'd learn, share, and grow together. We've spent a lot of time talking about polio. So today, I thought I'd turn the lens a little inward and share a few chapters of my life with polio. I contracted polio at just 14 months old in 1952, and I was left with lower limb involvement. That moment sent me on a lifelong journey, much of it in the world of volunteering. I never imagined myself as a speaker. In fact, I've always preferred listening. But over time, people started asking questions, and little by little, I found myself answering, sharing what I knew, and learning along the way. My advocacy work began in my teenage years with Girl Guides of Canada, where I served as a ranger. Then, at just 16, I proudly became the youngest Brownie leader in Canada. After several years of working with preteens, a parent approached me with a unique request. Her daughter, who had a neurodivergent disease, wanted to join the group. When I discovered there were no inclusive units in Girl Guides of Canada for girls with disabilities, I decided to take action. Then I founded the Ace Miriam Guide Company, an inclusive unit welcoming girls and women of all ages and all abilities. I led this group for over a decade, and during that time, I pursued a degree in special care counseling to better support and empower the members. In 1984, I innocently went to see a doctor for a polio checkup, thinking it would be good to have a baseline of my abilities after 33 years of stability. Well, he checked my general abilities and pressed on my right thigh. I jumped in pain. He stopped checking and immediately said to me, "I'll fix you right up, no problem." "Okay, hey, what are you doing?" He said, "Here's a little shot of cortisone and you will be all better." Not knowing what it was, timidly, I agreed. And 3 hours later was the last time I walked on my own power. For 1 year, I was bedridden and searched worldwide to find out what had happened to me. After seeing at least 75 doctors in Montreal, no one had a clue. Eventually, through mailings and calls, and let's remember, back in 1984, no personal computers or internet, a doctor in Edmonton did answer me and said I could go to his clinic 3,000 miles away. He would help me. 6 weeks later, he and his physio team got me up and walking a few steps. It turned out that shot sent my 33-year-old polio nerves, already frazzled, into a tailspin, causing a full body nerve disorder. I literally went from my normal 45% power to less than 3. Eventually, I received essential support from my federal MP, Madame Lise Bacon of Chomedy, Quebec. She contacted Dr. Neil Cashman, then from Chicago, and we started a specialized polio clinic here in Montreal. Finally, in late 1985, I was diagnosed with post-polio syndrome. In response, I co-founded Polio Quebec, alongside fellow survivors Siglindi Stida and Sally Aitken. Later, it was incorporated as a nonprofit foundation. And today, 40 years later, it remains active and vital. While many other support groups across Canada have unfortunately closed due to funding cuts, Quebec is now home to the only polio clinic in the country. Polio Quebec began in 1985. I started organizing monthly in-person support meetings and other initiatives, building a network of 10 local groups across the province. These meetings weren't just about sharing stories, they were lifelines. We held medical seminars, conferences, and social gatherings, always focused on education, empowerment, and community. I also made a point to regularly communicate with healthcare professionals, helping them understand the long-term effects of polio. 2018, we moved into the virtual space where I developed a yoga Zoom program with yogi instructor Mandy, specifically designed for people with post-polio syndrome. It's been a beautiful way to help members stay active and engaged in the comfort of their homes. With COVID-19 pandemic, the world had changed. We changed too. We explored many new opportunities. Today, I participate in more than 15 international Zoom meetings each month. Yes, 15. And I still host Polio Quebec weekly Zoom meetings for our members. These are safe spaces to share, learn, and support. We've also expanded our reach by training leaders in Mexico, India, Australia, Brazil, and a great number of African countries, thus helping create local networks of support around the world. In addition, I help manage polio pain Zoom meetings on occasional Fridays and offer private Ask Zoom sessions where survivors can ask personal health questions in a one-on-one setting. It's all about accessibility and compassion. Most recently, I've been working with a small team to collect anonymous stories from polio survivors for an upcoming virtual museum project called Voices of Polio Survivors Virtual Museum. It is a project coordinated by Susan Schoenbeck, USA, Vinnie Lugani, Berlin, Germany, and me, Mona Arsenault, Quebec, Canada. The purpose is to share publicly stories that demonstrate underlying facts and feelings of polio survivors that make them the resilient people they are today. A place where our voices and histories can be preserved. I've also written and submitted grant proposals to support digital outreach and medical conferences. My advocacy began to extend beyond post-polio in my home on Zoom, and I began teaching literacy and numeracy as a volunteer to adults through an organization called the Learning Exchange, often tutoring neurodivergent individuals. I eventually became the president of this organization and now also chair two governing boards within the English Laval School Board. 35 years later, I love what I can do. My involvement with Enable Montreal was a one-year accessibility evaluation initiative. It introduced me to lasting friendships and very impactful work. Motivated by my own challenges in accessing appropriate health care, I joined the Patient Advocacy Committee to address accessibility at the new Montreal Glen Hospital site, a large amalgamated medical complex. In 2022, I was appointed to the Accessibility Standards Canada on the Emergency Egress Technical Committee, contributing to national accessibility guidelines. In 2024, I helped co-found the Post-Polio Advocacy Group, which continues to grow on Facebook, and I proudly joined Rotary Club World Disability Advocacy, where as a member, I participate in regular meetings and global live streams. Focused on disability rights and inclusions, where I also serve as part of the polio chapter. The journey wasn't easy, but it was deeply rewarding. What I've learned is this: connections matter. Whether through a Zoom screen, a shared yoga session, or a simple phone call, what we do for each other as a community is powerful. Together, we can keep making life better for polio survivors around the world. In my personal time in this rebirth, as my post-polio symptoms continue to intensify, I became a bead artist. I've discovered joy and comfort in bead embroidery, a creative hobby that replaced the more physically demanding crafts that I enjoyed, like dream catchers and macrame. I was published in Bead magazine and had an exhibition with 3 of my pieces. Now, over the last 10 years, I have worked with polio support groups around the world. I would like to introduce Safia Ibrahim. Ken? Hello, Safia.
Hello, Mona.
And I have to tell you a bit about this wonderful, remarkable polio story. Safia Ibrahim is joining us from Ottawa and is a polio survivor. She is a global health advocate known for her efforts in raising awareness about polio and its impact, particularly in her own life. She has shared her personal journey and experiences, often speaking about resilience, hope, and the importance of vaccination in eradicating polio. Safia gained attention for her storytelling through platforms like The Moth, where she has told her story as parts of events focused on health advocacy. In addition to her advocacy work, Safia is involved in initiatives aimed at supporting individuals living with disabilities and promoting health education with a focus on improving health outcomes for communities affected by polio. Safia's story emphasizes the significance of resilience in overcoming challenges and the need for continued efforts to ensure a polio-free future globally.
Thank you so much, Mona. I first of all just want to tell you that I find you to be very inspirational, and find your story and your advocacy work just inspiring. And before I just start speaking, I have a couple of questions for you, if that's all right. Um, that just came to mind while I was listening to your story here. And I just want to know, like, what motivates you to do what you do every day?
I want to find the answers to post polio syndrome and to build a sense of identity within the polio community. There were no answers to help me, so I had to take the first steps. I had to start this Polio Quebec Association, and our mission statement states the strength of Polio Quebec rests above all on its members. This means a network of support. My goal was to develop and strengthen partnerships with other relevant organizations because we are STILLSTANDING, still standing.
Wow. That's phenomenal. And you're right, we are still standing. And so I have another question though. What is the exact cost behind who will experience post polio? You've touched a bit on that, but I would like to hear some more.
Well, we really don't know. But in my unique post polio situation and years of research, I can see many futures. And so also do most of the people listening here today. My story is unique and my circumstances are different, but each and every polio person out there has an exceptional story, but the same profound second disability nonetheless.
Amazing. Okay. And one last question. So, what strength have you discovered that you have as a polio survivor?
Wow. Ever since I encountered individuals who believed you weren't good enough simply because you walk differently, I've been reflecting deeply on my feelings. As a child attending a school for students with disabilities, I was surrounded by such diversity that I didn't even realize there were so many ordinary or normal students in other schools. Then, as the able one in my school as a walker, I could push the wheelchairs. That is, the able bodied deaf, that is, until the able bodied deaf children joined our school. And then they got the special job of pushing. My strength has impacted hundreds of polio people around the world. My journey has spanned decades and taken many forms, but always with one goal in mind: supporting and connecting with fellow polio survivors. This journey wasn't easy, but it has been deeply rewarding. What I've learned is this: connections matters, and what we do for each other matters.
Hmm, you're right.
Together, we can make a better life for polio survivors around the world.
Yeah, and I agree. You've touched upon the like the support your parents provided during your childhood. What advice would you give to the parents of newly diagnosed polio survivors, or a child that has been newly diagnosed with polio right now?
I would like the parents to teach them well, help them to learn, help them to thrive. And then they will adapt and figure out their own ways, just as we did. And they will become the extraordinary people they were meant to be. To the parents, you will need compassion and support, just as any of your other children need you. These children deserve to be challenged, and when confronted by adversity, give them the chance to work it out for themselves first.
I love that. Thank you so much, Mona. This wonderful story, and I'm just so happy and glad to be here today. If it's all right, then I would like to just start introducing myself and sharing my story. And actually, I appreciate the introduction that you provided as well. So, my name is Sophia Ibrahim. I am from Ottawa, Canada, as Mona previously stated. I have been a global health polio advocate for over 5 years now, but I never imagined that to be part of my journey. I've started advocating in 2018 when I had a hip replacement surgery. One day I was sitting on the couch just sulking because it was taking me forever to recover from the surgery that I had, and that was brought on by polio. So I was sitting there on the couch eating chips and watching the news. Our public health chief of staff came on the TV and said that there was a polio outbreak um, in Toronto, in the city that I was living at that moment. And I was really surprised because the reason why I was sitting right there at that moment on that couch was because of a vaccine preventable disease, and measles is a vaccine preventable disease. It was the logical thing to do, immunizing children. I have 3 children, and I did vaccinate my children against all of those like illnesses. So I didn't understand why parents were hesitant. I decided to just, I don't know what happened, but something just clicked, and I decided to just pick up the phone and call our public health department to find out if there was anything that I could do. And immediately I was told that next week they were having a medical board meeting, and if I wanted to share my story, I was able to. So I've decided that, you know what, even though I don't like to be in the public, and like don't like to speak publicly or share my story, I felt like it was important for me to do so. So the following Monday, I got in a cab and I went to City Hall, and I went in front of the board members and shared my story. Now, what surprised me was in the background there was a group of parents who organized themselves and who were speaking against vaccines. And I didn't know that the issue was that prevalent. I didn't know that parents were actually very adamant about not vaccinating their children. And I knew at that point it was partially could be like misinformation, which is actually almost the whole story behind that movement. Because if they don't know, if parents do not know the ramifications of these illnesses, these diseases, measles and polio, then they won't see the point. Because sadly, we have become like vaccines have become their own worst enemies. They work really well, and we don't see these diseases as much anymore. So I went up there and shared my story for the first time. And within that evening, I heard on the news that the board decided to move forward with their combat against vaccine hesitancy within the city. And I was really surprised at that, the fact that I was able to even have that kind of impact. So the following week, I've decided to do a bit more research, and I contacted UNICEF Canada, who have taken me on as their special vaccine representative. And next thing I know, I was speaking to members of parliament in Ottawa, and I was speaking in the media and sharing my story, and learning more about exactly the state of like polio, and more about polio and post polio, and where we were at worldly in that moment. After that, I used to work. My background was in international business, so I wasn't really in the sector, but this changed into a career change for me. I'm currently a public engagement manager at Results Canada, which is a non-for-profit organization that works with like that advocates for global health, education for children, and nutrition, and economic opportunity for all. So I am very proud of the work that I do. I currently work with over 500 volunteers, and yeah, so my advocacy journey has led me into even being at like going to Central Park with the director of the W Health Organization, Dr. Tedros, just 2 years ago, or speaking in front of 10,000 people. So that was really interesting experience. And currently, I do whatever I can to basically create awareness and share my story, and educate individuals that don't know much about polio or post polio.
Wow, thank you so much. That was really an exciting story, and that you had people to answer to you. Wow, that was just great. I have one or two questions.
Mhm.
How do you use your storytelling in your advocacy work, and why do you think it's powerful?
Well, storytelling is extremely powerful because it creates that emotional connection and it humanizes complex issues. For example, polio, right? And it makes it more relatable and engaging. When I say it simplifies difficult topics, not many people know about polio, but by hearing my story or Mona's story, then they're able to learn more and say, wow, I thought polio was non existent. I thought it was gone because, to be honest, in our Western society, we don't see much of it. And it's people that do have polio are in the aging population. So, not much knowledge is shared there. And storytelling also inspires action. For instance, one time I met with a member of parliament, shared my story with him, and asked that they invest in the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. And next thing I know, he was sharing the story at the House of Commons and encouraging the government to invest in the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. So that was really exciting. And next day, he actually messaged me on Twitter, currently known as X, and said that because of my story, that's why he's supporting this initiative. I could also like proudly say that sharing my story has encouraged others to reflect and take meaningful actions and steps towards change, just like the MP that I met with. So it's a very powerful tool for sure.
Wow, yes, it is powerful. How has your experience with polio influenced your perspective on health and wellness?
Hmm, that's a good question. Living in Ottawa, Canada, I could personally say that doctors don't know much about polio, post polio. So every single time I meet a new doctor, they look at me and say, "Hey, wow, you look so young. We haven't seen a polio patient this young." So it's really surprising to me. But as the number of polio survivors decrease and the healthcare workers learn less about polio, um, it basically decreases like that like they don't learn as much about polio in schools or in the hospitals, so which is why we must continue as polio survivors to speak up and let the world know that we still exist, and we also know ourselves best, so it's very important that we continue to advocate for ourselves and share our knowledge with our healthcare workers and work together with them as a team. So yeah.
Wow, yes, it is a challenge, a big challenge. Can you discuss a moment when you felt particularly resilient and what experience has taught you?
Hmm. To be honest, living, I'm sure you could relate, Mona, but living with polio, I feel like every day that I'm able to get out of bed in a healthy manner is a day where I am practicing, I guess, resiliency, right? Or being resilient. But I would say that it would be probably be when I had my daughter, my first child. I never really thought I would be a mother or I would be able to become a mother. And I had a stillbirth prior to having my daughter prior to her birth. So I didn't really think that like um, I guess that story was going to be part of my journey, like motherhood. So having just becoming a mother in itself felt like I was being resilient, as in going against my beliefs or the limitations that I put upon myself. So what did that have taught me? To be honest, that has taught me that like the only limits that really exist is the ones that we place on ourselves. And when it comes to society, we could also challenge that as well, but we have to start with ourselves first. So that's what I would say would be a time that I felt like I was being resilient, is just like the time when I decided to become a mother.
Resilience, that is the key word to all of us who have had polio. I think that we are quite the resilient group.
Agreed.
I want to say thank you so very much, Sophia, for joining me in this 1-year anniversary, and I think we will have a wonderful new year coming up, and I expect to have another 12 solutions talks. In closing, I wanted to say that I have been told I am indefatigable in my quest to help people with polio. Ask me, and I have to find a way to do it. On behalf of Polio Quebec Association, I extend my deepest gratitude to each and every one. My unwavering commitment, dedication, and countless hours invested have been the cornerstone of this organization. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to every member, volunteer, and supporter whose unwavering dedication and commitment have made a resounding success for Polio Quebec and the world of polio. I remain committed to inclusion, accessibility, and advocacy for those whose voices are too often left unheard. Together, we have proven that in the face of adversity, our collective strengths know no bounds. Thank you. Warmest regards, myself, Mona. Thank you all.